And welcome back, everyone. This is Saturday Stratagem. This is my weekly look at stories, mostly political, that, as I warned you before, this is not a podcast about conspiracy theories, but at the same time, it's not a podcast about conspiracy theories. My framing them as stratagems is my contention that things are as pretty much 6+ decades on this earth, this mortal coil. I don't recall anything as fucked up as Trump 2.0, and it helps me, and hopefully it helps others, to view things through a slightly twisted lens, an absurdist's view, if you will. Because in order to try to get our mind around these things, that they are turning into fast moving objects in order to obscure our ability to comprehend what's going on, you have to you have to think, I hate to say it, outside of the box. You have to think of things. You can't take it in a logical, literal way. Because if I told you, dear friends and viewers, 2 years ago today, that Donald J. Trump would be president again, and he'd be using the Treasury as his personal piggy bank, you'd say, oh my, no, first of you say, no, make it stop. Vladimir Putin gets him elected once, and then we were rid of him. We had Uncle Joe. Things were just, things were like, they were good, right? They weren't great, but they were good, and people were nice to each other, right? At least in the quarters that we operated in, until Donald J. Trump broke it and invited the truly double red pilled MAGA motherfuckers to be their baddest selves and just say, no, 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 you misunderstood. Racism was always okay. Just, say what you feel. It's better for you. The whole, so post Project 2025. So the stratagems, and we have a few of them that we've been talking about over the past few weeks. The main one, I'm going to go through we'll call Iran, Taiwan, and then we're going to sprinkle in a couple other little pieces that are dangling out there. As you probably know, the Senate pulled back a vote on a legislation to defend against the War Powers Act, because they all of a sudden they didn't have the votes. And they went into a holiday weekend, as you know, and then everybody evaporates from Washington for some period of time, and that to be determined when they're going to have a quorum, etc., again to carry on. But it came so close, and that what would have been reflected in the mainstream media as a loss for the Republicans, of course, from my perspective, would have been a win for Donald Trump, because it's my contention that he needs an escape hatch, and a loss, meaning a win in enforcing the War Powers Resolution, would be the best thing for him politically, although he would have to take a loss, which is hard for him because the pride thing. And he's a stubborn MF. I am too. I'm stubborn also, but not to the extent that it harms millions of other people. If it's me, it's just I'm harming myself because I'll behave that way. The dog will hate me, and then my wife will disparage me, and I'll be sad and tearful. So no, so in mine, as I explained very recently, he would then lose that vote. He would stand up and scream and say, "God damn Democrats, the cowards, they're running away from this conflict. And I told you I was going to crush the Iranian resistance and all that. But because you, dear voters, are all I think about night and day, I'm going to take this vote as a message from the Lord, Donald J. Trump, and from my voters that you really don't want any more of this war. So I'm going to listen to my voters, and I'm going to expeditiously, not a word he ever uses, going to bring the troops home and let everybody else sort out the Strait of Hormuz. Not my problem anyways. I won already. I won already 5 times at least, and I'm bringing the troops home. I'm bringing the boys and girls home. Or it's Pastor Pete Hegseth's war, so it's mostly boys, except for the one that the mother that got killed in Kuwait, regrettably, for a war that never should have happened. So does it mean that they were going like this and just taking the temperature of that vote, because they have all those moving parts with, Cassidy, they have Louisiana lame duck, Texas lame duck in the Senate, and then they have all of the Thomas Massey and the other disgruntled folks in the House. And will that line up? He doesn't want to play the game because there's downside risk to, in his mind, to losing a vote, like being told what to do. But it's all a charade, right? Which we'll revisit again, the charade, much like we discussed about the Supreme Court and the 2 major cases that they decided between Donald Trump and John Roberts way back at the beginning of the term, that these were the 2 soldiers that were going to fall, and you were going to, well, let's do it right now. That, as we discussed, the Donald Trump was informed, much to his regret, that these are 2 votes that you're going to lose, sir, and that is the tariffs case and birthright citizenship, which is yet to come, and that is for strategically for plausible deniability that will allow the Supreme Court to maintain just a semblance of dignity and carry on, because they are supporting Donald Trump. But if they give him if he's batting 1,000 at the Supreme Court, then even the least interested court watcher will say there's something rotten in Denmark, right? And something fishy here. And there's fraud, there's collusion. And then the pitchforks come out and the Supreme Court start getting pizzas delivered breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That would be a bridge too far. So they need to have a couple of decisions that they can turn cynically to the progressive side of the fence and say, no, we're not in the bag for Trump. We gave you. That's what they're thinking. They wouldn't say that. But we ruled in a way that was favorable to the progressive cause in both birthright citizenship to come and on the tariffs. Those were important cases for your side. We're all together. We're one big country, but we know that it's polarized. But those are two consequential rulings that went your way. So if you're calling us unfair, inequitable, that's not fair either. We are riding right. We're pitches are going straight down the middle, right over the plate. Here. We are we are 100% fair and balanced. Taiwan was, and that of course we're just waiting on. It'll be interesting to see how long they hold the decision in birthright citizenship. If things get really chippy, do they pull it forward and announce it because they need the juice, or do they hold it all the way? I mean, we're on the doorstep of June. Do they hold it till July just for suspense? I have no idea, but that'll be fun, and the discussions about that birthright citizenship and how that kind of juxtaposes with their overall immigration policy. Yeah, Taiwan is, President Trump was just meeting with Xi Jinping. It appeared that they didn't get an awful lot accomplished. A few Boeings, a few soybeans, but we would have. I mean, if we had wanted to write the game plan for them, we would have wanted them to sit down, or their emissaries, to sit down and talk about some very consequential issues related to AI security, right? And maybe the use of autonomous weapons, things that will really matter to us, not today, but 5, 10, 15 years down the line. I'm aware of the fact that the rate of change and the pace of that with AI and not knowing what next week, month, or year will bring, but to begin the process of having that discussion, just like Trump, he has people that are tech people on the payroll. Unfortunately, like David Sachs is a corrupt individual. He could reach out for the gentleman that laid face down naked on the White House lawn for his coronation, like Bezos and Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, and Tim Cook. But it would be helpful if we had a public-private partnership to discuss AI safety, and like now or a year ago at full speed, because this is a very, very consequential issue. Right? But we that's wish casting, because Trump's real motivation is to extort as much money as he can out of that industry. And if you're talking about regulation, you're not about getting the money. So that will take a little bit more doing. There will be some head fakes in the direction of safety. There will be they will create a guise, a ruse. They will prevaricate. They will say silly things. But I would imagine that not a lot will get done towards that end, because again, like if he's thinking about the midterm elections, will he be subject to investigations if they lose the House, and he will then want to go, you know, I think as the kids say, balls out, and ransack the Treasury and extort money from the companies, the AI companies, before the next 2 years are over. You know? Because 1.776 billion is not enough to get by. So yeah, um, So yeah, Taiwan. They had their conversation in China, and I always viewed that because of a pre-existing schedule where I talked about this the other day and posted about it 2 or 3 days ago, that the U.S. military is currently conducting exercises, some of which were initiated from the Philippines and some from the islands of Japan as a show of force, and also testing some new um, mobile rocket mobile missile launchers, right? That are on flatbeds, but can be moved. They can be set up, fired, and then moved very quickly, so the opponent can't hit them, can't pick up the signature on their radar and say, okay, eliminate that. Talk about a tough job. If you're driving the truck with the missile launchers on the back, you might be of interest on on every television in China. Um, but these are our next generation missiles on the most modern launchers, and they're pretty fantastic. China has some pretty great hardware as well. So that is not a fight that we want to get into, because there will be no winners, only losers in that. Uh, but because of the vagaries of the weather around that area of the world, um, and certainly in the Taiwan Strait, will gets a little bit choppy between now and the fall. So these drills are going on now, and then they're going to go back in October, and just kind of working like scenario planning. How could they use pre-existing exercises for some malign purpose? And I would say that if you wanted to, Donald Trump can't constitutionally, and I caveat that because saying he can't and then insert anything you want after that doesn't mean he won't try. And that goes to almost anything, because I mean, look where we are. Look at the big beautiful ATM machine in Washington D.C. that's being pillaged right now, and it'll happen. It'll happen again, and we don't have the mechanisms in place to audit now. I mean, you can do it retrospectively, right? But that's difficult. And all of the, or most of the inspectors general that are in various agencies and departments have been fired. So all of the watchdogs and the cops have been sent home. So it's a very daunting task to find out exactly what they're doing. What is Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, authorizing in the way of financial transfers? There was some talk months ago about when we receive money for the certain tariff payments, we're going to be in a separate sequestered account, and one of those accounts was essentially domiciled in UAE. That's not in our control. You shouldn't be allowed to keep U.S. taxpayer funds in foreign accounts. But the shouldn't be able part in Trump administration 2.0 is a little bit nebulous. So, yeah. So all I thought about for this particular stratagem was that he could, if you declare, it's not going to declare war on China. But if you say that we're involved in a military conflict, and the nation can't be distracted at this time by an election because, just laying the predicate for a hostile and illegal act. But he has the troops to enforce something like that. He can, as we've talked about before, if Trump got up, he Oval Office address at 9 o'clock some night, and 27 bootlickers all around him or not. He said, I'm. This is a very grave situation in the Pacific right now, and in good conscience, I don't think the American people would want me to hold an election while we're considering whether to deploy our nuclear arsenal. Risky? Sounds like a nice car. Risky, yes, unless the fix is already in. You know, that perhaps through back channels, he says, that statement you wanted me to make about Taiwan, where we no longer oppose open communication between the Chinese Communist Party and Taiwan on all matters that are related to if he started calling it reunification as opposed to a hostile act, that would change the whole tenor. And oh, by the way, what if he'd said that he was going to delay shipping any more weapons to Taiwan until, an arbitrary date of 45 days before the U.S. midterms. And then right at that time, in concert, when the beginning of those exercises are going on, change the language in our statement, the ambiguity that has been built into our communications about Taiwan all the way along, going back decades, right? Strategic ambiguity. And we announce that we're not sending weapons. Then we give Xi Jinping something. We've got a little charade that allows Trump to weaponize that and F with the schedule of the elections, or threaten to. And he always has. The whole thing about ICE is when we were going through jumping through the hoops earlier in the term about won't he nationalize the actual the National Guard troops in various states, and will the governors cooperate? And we know that Gavin Newsom was a no. We know that Governor Pritzker was a no. But in red states, they were like, "Go at it, DJT, because you're the man," right? This would be a different game because he can send. Let's say that they get their ICE recruiting, which is bad recruiting followed by pitiful training and no background checks. So you're not getting the creme de la creme in ICE. But if you get enough numbers and you say to them, they are not subject to any of the restrictions, posse comitatus, anything else, the ICE agents are essentially Donald Trump's private military force. That's his Trump guard, if you will. So he can deploy him essentially in any way that he wants to, unless Congress decides to stand up and show that they have a little bit of testosterone-related storage, something like that, a bolus. We haven't seen much sign, except, as I said yesterday, the most handsome coward in Washington, John Thune, is starting to just sort of stand a little tall, look a little bit more handsome, which is almost unbelievable, inconceivable that he could be, because he's what is he? He's 5 years older than I am. He's Redford-esque, just like this beautiful, like craggy, rugged Dakota kind of guy, kind of Redford vibe, right? Um, yeah. So he's starting to push back, or at least ask a few questions. It used to be, if he was feeling uncomfortable, his kind of, like Susan Collins when she's like, stern warnings and deeply concerned. John Thune, on the other hand, was, well, if I'm honest with you, it's not the it's not the it's not my favorite thing that the president's ever done, but got to go by, you know. So that would be, in his mind, like he was pushing back aggressively when he was just saying enough to not get his ass handed to him by the MAGA mob. But essentially, unless there was a revolt in the House and the Senate, Trump could send to blue states capitals, major voting, you know, major concentrations of voters in blue states, with particularly the ones that have some red governors or red mayors, if that exists, and just try to barrel through it and get enough troops, menacing troops with masks, close enough to give people pause. Now, what we're going to hope for, of course, is, they've made all this noise about the SAVE Act, but that's kind of settled down. The admonition about getting that certified copy of your birth certificate, your real ID, your passport, getting all that in order. You got to do that anyways, because these can turn on a dime. They can change the rules, and they'll do it as close to the election as they can, because that's the maximum disruption. Like, oh my God, we can't. You know what? I'm going to just set this one out because this is too complicated. So that's what they want to happen. Yeah. So those are all fun. That's Taiwan. That is our Iranian play, and the Supreme Court. The let's see. Maybe we'll leave that for today, just as sort of a recap, since it's Saturday and it's starting to sprinkle just a tiny bit, and I should be nice to the dog. So, wishing you all a delightful day. If you have any different angles on the sort of absurdist ploys that I laid out, something you'd like to chat about, we can chat offline. You can drop me some ideas in the feed. You can drop me ideas in the DMs. Although I am not. I'm getting better, but I'm not as assiduous about checking the DMs. So yeah, so we can do all that. Let's see. There was one other. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, doggy will have to wait. There's another one that I was trying to scheme out today, as far as congressional power versus executive branch, and again, things that were powers that were traditionally left to the Article 1 power, the Congress. Trump has been trying, as he's trying to elevate the executive power, Article 2, he's been trying to claw back power from Article 1, the Congress, right? They've been cooperating by going to sleep under their desks and sucking their thumb, at the very least. They're cooperating up till this moment. We can always hope that after the preliminary ballots and the special elections and the primaries and all that, that maybe one or two more people will just be in, they are redistricting me out in any case, so I don't have anything else to fight for. So fuck this, I'm going to stand up and be heard. Maybe we'll get lucky. Um, Auto industry. So Canada, because of Trump, because of the tariffs, because of the way that the U.S. have been treating Canada reached out and is forging stronger ties to China, right? Because they've been dying to for decades. No, it's out of necessity, right? Canada's a beautiful country filled with delightful people that have been our biggest allies. They're our biggest trading partner. All the things that they are, and our neighbors. And how do we repay them? Well, how does Trump repay them? By being a dick, right? And he just with Mark Carney just going insulting him, much of the way that he treated the people in Greenland. Right, that's still ticking out there in the ocean too, but that isn't a today thing, right? They had a march in Greenland the other day, and just basically a no means no. But Trump made an interesting statement at a very curious location in Detroit at an event held by I guess, the Economic Club of Detroit, or Detroit Economic Club, one of those two. Every city has that kind of as hand in hand with the Chamber of Commerce, and it's their job to drive business. The chamber drives the business. The economic clubs are often the leaders of the major companies that are domiciled there in the city. Detroit, right? So automotive and many other things, but that's the home of the auto industry in the United States. And in Detroit, Trump indicated that he was kind of excuse me, China EV curious. He made a statement. Essentially, he said, maybe I'll invite China to manufacture some cars here if it means jobs for our people, right? But the tipping point on this little adventure, China can make, in China, right out front, the amount of subsidies that go into the Chinese automotive sector are enormous, right? Because that is a state-run industry, and it's difficult to compete unless we are subsidizing our industry. But that runs a little bit counter to the legacy Republican philosophy, right? So uh, but it's kind of, subsidies have kind of become disfavored. On the Democratic Party side, we're worried about our labor unions, right? Who support us a little bit less so. Trump ate away a little bit at the unions, but hopefully, because some of that were people of color that got a little bit curious about Trump too, and everybody got the wake up call that it's racism and corruption and nothing for you. But you think about it from, if you're the UAW, United Auto Workers, right, or the well, that's enough, UAW, and you say, yeah, well, I'm Donald J. Trump, and I'm inviting my friend Xi Jinping, who I just licked his boots in his hometown. I'm going to let him build a factory and make a limit of only 50,000 cars, right? Uh, what would that mean to to the American auto industry? Basically, and I'm talking about EVs. Excuse me. That would be it would be ludicrous because Trump has done everything he can to handicap the EV. Excuse me. Wind, solar, and battery in the U.S. because that is the hat tip to his friends in the fossil fuel industry, who he wants to continue to fire large amounts of money into his PACs, right? Which he has his own, and then Republican candidates each have their own PAC. Um, so how would that work? How could could Trump of his own volition say, okay, I'm going to let China buy this tract of available land, assemble a facility, and manufacture cars. And we'll just try it out. He will be getting, from every labor group and from the big three automakers plus others. We have other, we have we have manufacturers from Germany, Japan, and Korea who are building cars here too. Right? So Kia from Korea, we have BMW and Mercedes here, BMW at least, and so there are other companies that have interest in our market, and the fact that an industry that is so heavily subsidized by the national government wants to come in and quote unquote compete, that for, if you're talking about subcompact cars, whether EV or traditional, China can, with some voodoo economics, they can undercut the price that our manufacturers can offer, and kind of for their their standard model. If our I'm not going to come up with the name of the competitive brand, but if our midsize goes for 40, then China, because they can manipulate it because they're subsidized, could come in at 30 and just completely whack our market. Now, according to the people that rate these things and are relatively unbiased, not the Chinese rating agencies, is that the strides that they're making, many of the strides that they're making, is because of the IP that they borrowed from the U.S. and Germany, right? But we are where we are today, so they could come in. China could, and this is my Saturday stratagem, that it would be a big lift, but from a corruption point of view, it would be absolutely magnificent. Trump thinks, I'm almost out the door, right? I've already got all the money from the fossil fuel industry. It's already in my account, in the accounts of my children, right? Is that the most money? That's, the answer is, up until now, yes. That's the source of the greatest amount of campaign contributions on record over the past 10 years or so has been from that industry. But then we're talking about the bank of Xi Jinping incentivizing Trump to give China a shot at our market. And once their cars, I mean, these things, I don't drive, of course, but that's kind of funny that somebody that hasn't driven for 20 plus years because of eyesight gone bye-bye, wouldn't it be funny that a fully autonomous vehicle? I still wouldn't trust myself. I don't think you're allowed. I don't drink anymore, so it would be less fun. I'm perfectly happy doing Uber, but yeah, if the American public got a load of what was available at 30 instead of 40, and all of the bells and whistles and the extended range and the fact that you would save, I'm not talking about this, the subcompact, let's just go regularly, compact size vehicle, right? That you can save upwards almost $10,000 a year. The electricity. A lot of people kind of skip over the fact that just because you can charge the car doesn't mean that that's free. But compared to, compared to the price of gas now, and then you're getting yourself out of the business of being subject to Middle East potentates having a slap fight with whomever, and your cost of getting to work just went up $20, $30 a week, whatever that is to you. If now your electricity bills can go up too if you let data centers build on top of your home and all over your city and town. But on the whole, it is, and also the annual maintenance cost for these cars, for these fully electric Chinese made cars, um, is about 50% of what the internal combustion comparable model is. So you're saving in the cost of the energy required for the car to move, and you're saving half of whatever. Look at your annual maintenance. It doesn't require oil. You don't have to change the oil. That's included in some leases here. And if it's a company car, then you're like, fuck it. But from over a 10-year period, if you looked at it and you're like, the subsidies had gone away, the Biden subsidies for the EVs, and forget about the fact that our environment needs it. Not, global warming, although Trump and the Republican Party would like you to think that it's fake news, it ain't. And so we need to move in that direction in any case. But if you looked at it or looked at it for 5 years, if you in fact saved $30,000 over 5 years just in the cost of the energy required to power the car, that's real money. So yeah, I don't know exactly. That's when a not fully developed stratagem / don't call me a conspiracy theory idea. But again, this is Trump. Look what he's doing IRL every single day, and taking your tax dollars out for a ride whenever he feels like it. And when he's taking a day off and golfing, who knows, maybe his kids or Scott Bessent is taking your money out for a drive themselves. So, yeah. So, as I tried to bid you a fond farewell 15 effing minutes ago, I will try once again. Thank you. Maybe tomorrow, maybe not. And I will, if not, I will see you on Monday. And I thank you for your time, your attention, your helpful thoughts and comments, certainly for your subscriptions, your restacks, and the like. So thank you, and have a beautiful night and a safe weekend, long weekend. So Monday, no days off. Be back at it here for sure. But thank you and have a good day, unless there are fireworks going off. And then I will be trying to get the dog out from under the bed. Thank you.